Hello everyone, my name is Anna DaSilva and I'm a DNP candidate. My DNP scholarly project was on initiating spirituality into therapy plans in patients with mental health disorders. My committee chair was Dr. Lisa Sturrer, my second reader was Dr. Boniface Stegman, and my community member was Candace Dalton, who was the Senior Director of Clinical Programs. Background significance. The COVID-19 pandemic, along with confinement and social segregation across the world, has profoundly affected behavioral health. According to Currier et al., religion and spirituality, RS, are important sources of identity, social affiliation, ways of coping, and well-being for many people. Anxiety, sadness, aggravation, insecurity, distraction, and sleep disorders have all been reported at high levels. Cognitive interventions, including spirituality or religiosity as integrated components of patients' practice, are often effective with positive treatment success, and multiple studies have shown this. But adding spirituality in the clinic can encounter a number of obstacles when it comes to its inclusion, such as differing beliefs on the part of individuals and potential disagreement with secular methods. Pharmacological interventions are commonly indicated for such disorders, but they have been shown rarely to insufficiently address the range of difficulties associated with severe mental illnesses, of which schizophrenia or bipolar may be the most debilitating example. In order to facilitate recuperation, appropriate psychosocial interventions should accompany pharmacological measures. It is found that 15.4% of individuals with disabilities, such as schizophrenia, have reduced self-efficacy and suffer more self-stigma. Bipolar disorder is a severe, recurrent mental illness that significantly affects the quality of life and daily functioning patients, even when it is stable. Review of literature. Mental health disorders are responsible for approximately 8 million deaths worldwide, leading to an average reduction of 10 years in life expectancy. Global mental health-related illness may cost up to $6 trillion by 2030. Although much has been done to treat bipolar disorder, it continues to present a challenging global health issue. Community-based mental health models attempt to address these issues with the availability of treatment. It is necessary to provide quality management and to ensure patients have access to supportive and psychosocial care, and help maintain treatment in their community by enhancing individuals' functioning. Research has shown that higher degrees of religiosity generally correlate with positive mental health outcomes, such as greater life satisfaction, greater happiness, and a more positive attitude towards life. The FICA and HOPA spiritual assessment tools have been crucial for integrating spirituality into therapeutic practices. These tools are reliable, valid, and user-friendly for healthcare providers. In health research, the terms spirituality and religiosity are frequently used interchangeably in describing a multi-dimensional concept of transcendence. Although many confuse the two terms, religiosity describes the behavior and social aspects with respect to faith, such as attending religious services, Identifying such behaviors informs healthcare providers how to integrate religiosity into patient care, and that is crucial to providing sufficient support. This study has much to add to the growing body of research in discussing the possible advantages of integrating spirituality and or religiosity into therapy plan for a patient. Theoretical framework. As stated by Poplintau, Luca et al., Maslow's theory of spirituality offers an influential perspective on human development. It proposes that people have a profound value to maximize their potential, reach self-actualization, and find significance in life. One of the main aims of the theory is the self, seen as a humanistic way of life. Maslow's later inclusion of the transcendence level correlates more closely with the understanding of spirituality. That is, that individuals can transcend the self to dedicate their lives to a higher purpose. Maslow argued that spirituality addresses the major challenges facing human life, which makes it one of the highest needs to be in Maslow's hierarchy. Methods design. This initiative takes place within an organization that provides remote services to individuals with mental health disorders across several states, including Florida, Virginia, and Washington. This facility employs nurse practitioners who serve the local populations in each state and also offer remote care through a centralized triage unit, a sequence by which the inclusion and exclusion criteria analysis was performed with an electronic medical record. Utilizing both quantitative and qualitative methods, this study explores patients' interest in incorporating spirituality into their therapeutic approach. The spiritual assessment tool, FICA, includes questions such as, what is your faith or belief? Do you consider yourself spiritual or religious? What things do you balance and that give meaning to your life? Is your faith or belief important in your life? What influences does your faith or belief have or how you take care of yourself? Are you part of a spiritual or religious community? How would you like to address these issues while caring for you? These were some of the questions that were incorporated as part of the FICA spiritual assessment tool. The HOPE spiritual assessment tool considered the sources of hope, which some of the questions consisted of: what are your sources of hope, strength, comfort, and peace? What do you hold on to during difficult times? The O stood for organized religion. Are you part of a religious or spiritual community? Does it help you, and how? P stood for personal spirituality and practices. Do you have personal or spiritual beliefs? What aspects of your spirituality or spiritual practices do you find most helpful? The E stood for effects on medical care and end-of-life issues. Does your current spiritual situation affect your ability to do things that usually help you spiritually? As a doctor, is there anything that I can do to help you access the resources that usually help you? Are there any specific practices or restrictions I should know about to providing your care? These were some of the questions that were asked during the Hope Spiritual Assessment Tool. Sample. The inclusion criteria consisted of all patients, males and females, ages 18 and older, treated at the outpatient clinic with the diagnosis of depression, schizophrenia, and bipolar disorder. When a patient demonstrated willingness to incorporate spirituality, the FICA and HOPE assessment tools were used to conduct qualitative data analysis. The sample consisted of 91 adults diagnosed with a mental health illness, and they were treated from November 17, 2025 to December 31st, 2025. Data analysis. A bar graph using nominal data was selected to demonstrate patients' willingness to embed spirituality in their treatment plans. Qualitative and phenomenological data were also represented as a narrative organized around relevant themes. The bar graph was used to represent this data due to its visual appeal and simplicity and understanding. The narrative data was chosen and clustered into themes based on Colazzi's method, which employed to analyze the manually collective interview data. Colazzi's method includes 7 steps, which consist of transcribing all the narrative data from the participants, extracting statements that directly relate to the apparition under assessment, creating meanings for each statement extracted from the commentaries, constituting meanings into theme clusters, developing a fusion of the theme clusters and formulating significances, conducting a rigid analysis of the comprehensive description of the phenomenon, and then finally reconveying to participants for confirmation. These were the 7 steps that were part of Colazzi's method. Results. This bar graph demonstrates the patients that were willing to implement spirituality. As demonstrated here, it reveals that 76.9% of the patients were willing to implement spirituality, and 23.1% were the number of patients that were unwilling or patients who refused to implement spirituality. The qualitative and phenomenological data were categorized into 4 themes, which consisted of faith and belief, coping techniques, and hope and negativity. The faith and belief category is summarized as follows. I'm a Christian, goes to church every week, I go to devotion every morning, I attend Bible study when I can, I was raised in the church, feel strength from my church, feel strength from my faith, have a supportive faith community, reading the Bible, love going to Bible church on Wednesdays, I'm a Catholic, and yes, I'm spiritual, I go to Bible study every Wednesday. The coping techniques narrative is summarized into the following. I use prayer to help me cope with anxiety. I pray often to help me cope with life. I pray often and it helps me cope with life. I like to pray. Praying helps me with my anxiety. I pray to help me with my mental health. I use spirituality to help me. I believe in prayer as a coping mechanism. I use meditation and prayer. Praying helps me sometimes when I'm anxious. I pray daily. I read my Bible. I use spirituality and Bible reading for coping. I do everything I can for people, and I'm very active in my church. I consider myself a Christian, and it helps me cope with a lot of my stress that causes anxiety. My spiritual community is AA for me. It was there for me when I was on drugs. Yes, my belief is very important when I'm having a breakdown and no one to turn to. Finding strength in prayer. Learning more and getting understanding. It helps me when I'm feeling down. My faith helped me get through a lot. I didn't become religious until I started going to AA and learned the 12 steps. It helps keep me sober. I think being positive and praying helps me with being sick. I grew up listening to music. That always had a message. Believing and knowing helps ground me when I feel bad or think about harming myself. Helps me to navigate anxiety, my number one support. I read the Bible every day. I study my Bible, and my church friends help support me. The hope narrative is summarized in the following. Bible study, discussing faith with others, has been really good for me. Church increases hope and good feelings. I don't know if I'm spiritual, but I believe in a higher power. Things will get better. Most helpful is being around people I know. I'm still here. Made me feel better. Spiritual music lifts me. Higher power to connect to. Protects me. Being around positive people who don't judge me. Love going to church so I don't feel alone. Helps me know I am important and I deserve better. I believe things can get better, but it took a long time though. Going to church and being with people who love me. Community gives strong support, helps with feeling alone and isolated. Peer support helps lower anxiety and helps with depression. It helped me stop using crack. Support and presence give strength. People to call and be with me. I feel loved and I feel cared about. Even when problems don't go away, my connection to faith brings hope. Definitely is part of my life. A daily thing. Spirituality is important. The devil wants to bring me down, but I won't let him. I believe in Jesus. Jesus helps me every day. The final category was negativity, and summarized in the following. God has failed me. I remember going to church when I was young, but it didn't stop bad things from happening. Please don't ask me about religious stuff. I don't know. I have too many people die. Limitations. Staffing change, including the loss of a government contract, which laid off more than half of its staff. It was initially intended to include more states in this initiative. However, following the loss of the contract, it involved only 3 states, thereby reducing the sample size. This was a significant disadvantage for the organization, including the researcher. It was unclear whether the initiative would be sustained or the organization would survive. Over the next several months, the researcher maintained close contact with the facility manager and the chief medical officer as they rebuilt the organization, and the researcher subsequently rejoined it. Throughout the organization, motivation to grow and provide the necessary care to their individuals was a contextual factor as they continued to build and sustain themselves. This was moderated by having multiple meetings with the facility manager and staff about the initiative. This was accomplished through weekly meetings and posting it to the Slack channel and Google Docs. The researcher was always available to speak with staff who were receptive to the initiative. The time frame also coincided with the holiday season, which also affected the number of individuals attending their appointments. Some staff members were also taking time off during the holiday season, reducing the number of individuals seen for appointments. The short time frame of 8 weeks may not have been enough to gain proficiency in determining if patients were willing to incorporate spirituality or religion into their therapy plan. Discussion. There was a notable difference in the percentage of individuals who were willing to incorporate spirituality into their therapy plans. 76.9% compared to those who refused, 23.1%. This data highlights the willingness of patients to discuss spirituality and religion, as well as their interest in the impact these factors have on mental health disorders. The phenomenological data collected emphasized the effects of spirituality on mental health and coping mechanisms. The study's findings highlight the significance of incorporating spirituality and religion into patients' therapy plans. Participants reported that spirituality significantly contributed to their quality of life and enhanced their overall mental health and well-being. The data analysis emphasized the need to evaluate the individual's spirituality during the initial intake process. Implications for practice. This quality initiative highlights the importance of including spiritual assessments in the initial screening process for patients. The implementation of this initiative will establish a standardized process that enhances patient engagement, improves quality of life, includes diversity, and leads to better outcomes. Conclusion. As future nurse leaders, it is essential to continue to educate nursing staff on conducting spiritual assessments during the initial intake of patients with mental health disorders to improve the quality of patient care and outcomes. It is imperative to continue research into the phenomenon of religion and spirituality on patients' mental health disorders. These are my references. Thank you for listening to my presentation.